Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The wildfires in the Northwest Territories continue to rage and get even closer to some of the territory's major cities. Many residents have been given until midday Friday to evacuate by land or by air. Here's Daryl Stranger with more.
It's a very difficult situation, and a lot of folks facing some serious hardships.
Over 200 wildfires continue to burn in the Northwest Territories, most with a high or extreme fire danger forecast. Earlier this afternoon, evacuees from the wildfires started to be flown to Alberta, and Saskatchewan could see evacuees there as well. The fire closest to Yellowknife is within 15 kilometers, and winds are pushing the fire towards the city.
We've got some tough days ahead in terms of conditions. There's no denying that. We have 2 days of northwest to west-northwest winds on Friday and Saturday. Those would push fire towards Yellowknife, of course. And, you know, that is precisely why we project that the fire could reach the outskirts of the city by this weekend.
Westwick says this year's fires have started closer to communities than ever before.
The human toll of this wildfire season is pretty difficult to overestimate. We've had big fire seasons like this where we've had millions of hectares of land burned before. 2014 was quite notable in that over 3 million hectares of land had burned. However, this year, so many of our fires have either started very close to communities or eventually encroached upon communities due to the extreme conditions we're seeing out there. And that is... it's a tragedy for a lot of folks.
APTN video journalist Charlotte Morit-Jacobs, who is currently on maternity leave, lives just outside of Yellowknife and is set to evacuate with her young child tomorrow.
We really didn't think that we would get here, even though it's been dry and conditions have been definitely promising for fire season. It's been unprecedented, though.
Morit-Jacobs says people have dealt with this in the past, but not to this extent.
When we're talking about Yellowknife evacuating, that's half of the territory. That's 20,000 people overnight. And we have never experienced anything like this at all.
Morit-Jacobs is evacuating without her partner as he stays behind to fight to ensure their home and others are safe.
There are going to be people that want to stay in the communities. You can see he's right now setting up more fire hoses. But if you do have the capacity to stay behind, you know, it's not encouraged. Obviously, there's a reason why people evacuate to get out to make space for first responders. But, you know, he has disaster relief training and everything like that. So I feel fairly confident and is able to assist nearby communities if they need help fire smarting and fire breaks as well. But to know that you're going to be separated from your family for an unforeseeable future is something I've never experienced. And, you know, I have a 4-month-old, so definitely will be stories down the road.
As for when people can return home, nobody has an answer just yet.
It would be dangerous for people to return too early, but we don't know. Will this be days? Will this be weeks? On the evacuation alert, it said any folks traveling by air to pack for 5 days, and that was just based on space. But I'm seeing folks on the highway with all of their, you know, personal belongings and some of their memorabilia and valuable possessions. I think people are in it for the long haul and are prepared and will follow orders to return when it is safe.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News.
For more on the fire situation and evacuation of the N.W.T capital, we're joined by Shane Thompson, the N.W.T's Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs. Minister Thompson, appreciate you making some time for us here today and hope that you and your family are doing well as well. How would you describe the current wildfire situation in the Northwest Territories?
I would say brutal. It started actually in the beginning of May, around second week in May. It started actually last year in mid-October where our fire season went. Usually it goes about to middle of or late August, and we went right into middle of October. So we brought in our staff and our equipment early in May, and then probably had everything located where it needed to be and staff trained, and then all of a sudden Kadichi First Nation Hay River fire happened, and it has not stopped since.
How many people in the territory are on the move and evacuating from their homes?
So we are on to community, so it's N.W.T, Yellowknife, Ingram Trail. We're evacuating from Yellowknife right now. Hay River, Fort Smith, Enterprise have been. Jean Marie is as well. And today, about an hour and a half ago, Kikisa has been evacuated.
So
that's about 65% of the population.
Wow. You know, we're seeing the long lines for people waiting to get on flights in Yellowknife, which is to be expected. How do you think evacuation efforts are going there so far?
So it's been, it's taken some time. I mean, we've seen vehicles leave early before the order was issued. So there's a lot of people driving out, but the people that are flying out, we've had people registering at Sir John High School, and it's taken a bit of time to process everybody. We have an order of who gets out, people who are elderly, the sick, the vulnerable. So we're working on our first flight is actually, just looked at the time here, the next half hour. So we have a flight going out, and then we'll have another flight, and then a couple hours, and there'll be two more, and then we're trying to get as many people out as we can.
You know, you're mentioning the fire season even last year. How concerned are you that this is going to become the norm every summer?
Well, it's going to be the norm for again next year, because what we're seeing right now is the fire season's probably going to go up right until the first snowfall. And then what we're going to see is it's going to subside, and it's going to get underground, and it's going to hibernate there. And then as soon as it warms up in next spring, we're going to see more fires going on again. It's probably been the worst fire season ever when recorded, and our destroyed the 2014, which was our worst fire season there. So I think this is going to be the norm for a long time.
Scary to think of. Minister, appreciate you taking some time for us, and we're all thinking of everybody up there.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do this. And I'd just like to thank Alberta and the government of Canada, as well as all other jurisdictions that have helped us out here.
And here's a little of what evacuees should know if they want to fly out of the city. You must register in person at Sir John Franklin High School in Yellowknife. Approved passengers will be shuttled to the airport from the school, and one carry-on bag is permitted. Well, another rally in Winnipeg today to call for a search of the landfills. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. Dozens of National Union of Taxation employees showed up in force at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg over the noon hour. They were there to show solidarity with activists who are pushing for a search of a Winnipeg area landfill for the remains of 3 Indigenous women. APTN's Leanne Sanders was there and brings us this report.
Union President Mark Briere called on other unions and Canadians to stand in solidarity with the Indigenous community in Winnipeg to support a search of the Prairie Green landfill for 3 Indigenous women, believed to be the victims of an alleged serial killer.
But this is more than a cause. This is an injustice, to no end.
Briere leads the 30,000-strong union representing Canada Revenue Agency workers. He brought dozens of rank-and-file members away from their national conference to stand alongside Indigenous activists.
This is absolutely appalling, in my opinion, that the government is disrespecting the Indigenous people, especially the Indigenous women. They are being, they're disappeared, they're murdered. Nobody cares. They talk about it, then it goes away in the news. I think that it's time to make a difference, time to support them. The families seem to be almost alone to fight to get justice.
With a provincial election on the horizon, Manitoba Premier Heather Stefanson says the province will not support a search, while her political opponent, NDP leader Wab Kinew, does. The sister of Mercedes Myron became emotional talking about the fight to get governments on board for a search.
Our favorite place to adventure to when we were kids was the Forks. And now, it sucks that I have to stand here today in the same place fighting to bring her home. In order to do that, we need support from all three levels of government. They need to stop playing hot potato and using us for their political gain.
It's too late to search the Prairie Green landfill this year, which means future marches, rallies, and other actions by the families and their supporters. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is holding its annual General Assembly this week, and the agenda included a forum for provincial political leaders to speak directly with the chiefs in Manitoba. APTN's Christopher Reed was there.
The word on everybody's lips at this meeting was landfill, and specifically Manitoba Premier Heather Stefanson's unwillingness to fund a search of a Winnipeg dump where the remains of homicide victims Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to be. Provincial NDP leader Wab Kinew and Liberal leader Dougald Lamont reaffirmed their commitment to funding a search.
We're trying to make Manitoba into the place that doesn't leave anybody behind.
Now, we were also committed to funding the search for the Prairie Green landfill, as well as funding further cold case investigations.
But Progressive Conservative leader Heather Stefanson wasn't there, something AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick took note of.
Well, that's her loss. For myself as the Grand Chief, my issue is the landfill. The search for the landfill is a very important issue. It's a very important issue for our women and also for our men that do support us. It's been done before, and that's where it's been done in Ontario, where there was 100 policemen that went and searched for a man in the landfills. That was done. I don't see why we can't do it here.
After the event, we also asked Dougald Lamont about the potential voting effects of a strong focus on Indigenous issues in this provincial election.
There's no question to me that the PCs are running a dog whistle campaign. Right now, I mean, one of the major issues that's come up is the issue of whether we're going to actually search for murder victims. These people are murder victims. This is a crime scene. I do not understand what is supposed to be conservative about ignoring justice or not standing with victims of justice. Look, I actually think that if Manitobans had a better understanding of what was going on, instead of people just trafficking in stereotypes, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. But I will also say, we were the first party to stand up and say, you know, we would support the search of the Prairie Green landfill. And the response we got, the response I got was overwhelmingly in favor of it and not against it.
Christopher Reed, APTN National News.
The music world has lost some legends in the past week. Our Truth in Politics panel will look back on the legacy of Robbie Robertson after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Jeff Prytula was able to enjoy this view 2 nights ago while camping at Shuswap Lake, located in the interior of southern British Columbia. Thanks for sharing, Jeff. We want to see your photos. You can send them to share@aptn.ca, and your photo might be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 25 for Halifax, 24 in Fredericton. Rain and 26 for Kuujjuaq, showers and 20 in Nain. 29 with rain in Montreal, 27 in Val-d'Or. 19 in Sault Ste. Marie with showers, rain and 14 for North Bay. Sun's out and 24 in Thunder Bay, 20 in Sioux Lookout with rain. 20 with rain in Churchill, 25 and showers in God's Lake. 30 in Winnipeg, smoke, and 23 in Dauphin. Showers in 35 for Regina, 26 with rain in Saskatoon. 19 in Meadow Lake with rain, 23 with showers in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 19 with showers in Fort McMurray, 17 in rain in Fort Chip. 15 with showers in Edmonton, 31 in Lethbridge with rain. 22 for Vancouver, 26 and rain in Kamloops. 18 with showers in Prince George, 22 in Smithers. 16 in Old Crow with showers, 19 and rain for Whitehorse. Smoke, and 18 for Yellowknife, 21 in Wrigley. Plus 6 with rain in Sax Harbor, 13 with showers in Paulatuck. 14 in Chesterfield, 16 in Whale Cove. 6 in Resolute, 8 and rain in Igloolik. A community school teacher in Fort Qu'Appelle, Saskatchewan, has come up with a unique way to teach about colonization and financial literacy. It's called the Fur Trade Simulation, and it earned Andre Boutine-Maloney an award in teaching economics to middle schoolers. Simulation is hands-on, and Boutine-Maloney says the simulation takes students back to a time before treaties were signed. Participants have to find the student designated as a beaver and collect them to trade.
And then when the students went to the trading post, there was a whole list of different kinds of items that they could trade for. And these items acted kind of like a chance card. And they had detailed information about like what Indigenous people used before this. So like we kind of wanted to highlight that, you know, that Indigenous people had technology that was equivalent to these items before Europeans brought stuff.
The simulation debuted at last year's Treaty 4 gathering and will be featured again this year in September. It's been a rough few weeks for music fans with the loss of Robbie Robertson and Sisto Sugarman Rodriguez. Living legend Buffy St. Marie has also announced she will retire from playing live music because of health concerns. For more on all of this, we're joined by our weekly Truth in Politics panel. Carrie Benjo is the editor of Eagle Feather News and joins us from Regina. And Egon Sinclair is a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press and joins us from New Denver, British Columbia. Carrie and Egon, great to have you with us as always this week. Carrie, let's start with you and how you felt about the loss of Robbie Robertson and Sugarman.
It was, when you think of people like Robbie Robertson, people of that stature, you have this idea that they're going to be there forever. They're so iconic that you're not prepared for the news that they're gone. Their music lives on, but at the same time, their physical presence is not here. And it's like you get so accustomed to hearing them and being there that you just assume that they're going to always be there. And so it was a bit of a shocker to hear that he had passed, but we all have our end time, but it still always comes as a surprise when it's somebody who's so well known, who's broken through so many barriers and has established himself in his genre.
Egon, what type of legacy do you think Robbie leaves behind?
I think right up there with major musicians in the industry who opened the door for so many others. Redbone comes to mind. During the pandemic, I covered the death of Curtis Shingus, right. Jani, who passed away, who was a really iconic musician in Winnipeg. and certainly someone I grew up looking up to and idolizing. We're seeing a time in this period, really the last decade or so, where all of those of our elders who have opened up the doors for those of us to enter into these industries, not just in music, but also in entertainment, in the media, in pop culture. We're seeing that wave of people from the 1970s who really just not only marched, but also sang about those marches, opened up all of those different ways in which the mainstream could hear us. And we're seeing the benefits of that today.
Well, on that note, Carrie, Buffy Sainte-Marie has also announced that she will retire from live performances due to health concerns. Were you surprised by that announcement?
She's the same age as my mother. My mother's 83, and although I'm not surprised that because eventually she's going to have to stop performing, but I've seen her perform and she's so amazing and so energetic that I was sort of kind of thinking she was gonna keep performing, but because she's getting up in age, I'm not surprised that she has announced that she will retire from performing. But it's still a sad day to know that we're not going to have her out there, because she's so amazing. I've seen her perform live a couple of times, and it's so inspiring to see somebody like me up there and just captivating an entire audience. And it goes across, it's not just Indigenous people, it's non-Indigenous people, it's anybody that's interested in rock and the type of music she produces and the type of messages she sends out. It's just a really sad day.
Nigan, your thoughts on Buffy stepping away from the stage?
If you were to look at the catalog of Buffy Sainte-Marie songs, the dozens and dozens upon dozens of songs that she's written over the years, you would see a living embodiment, a living history of Indigenous activism, Indigenous women, and then most of all, the struggles that we have put up with for since really the 1960s, 1970s. I mean, Buffy Sainte-Marie was right on there with the Tonight Show at the Academy Awards and the American Music Awards. I mean, these major platforms that then made these large steps into opening up the mainstream into seeing Indigenous perspectives, but not just those perspectives, but the violence that we had been experiencing. And so it's a good reminder for all of us that it's not just about those who are out marching on the streets, but also those who are writing the songs and writing the stories, because both need to take place in order for us to have a living legacy and living history in our nations.
And a living legend she is. Nigan, Carrie, we'll leave it there, but appreciate you both taking your time this week.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Well, that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And you can find anything you may have missed here by visiting our YouTube page as well. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.